The wind sliced through Montana's hills like shards of glass, silent, biting, and endless. In a forgotten barn on the outskirts of a quiet town, a woman lay bound and battered, her shallow breaths barely rising from the weathered floorboards. She was a police officer, punished for uncovering the dark truth behind a ruthless drug cartel. Miles away in a lonely cabin blanketed by snow, a Navy SEAL and his German shepherd were both trying to mend wounds no one ever saw until Ekko lifted his head and growled low. Somewhere in that frozen stillness, a distant cry cut through the silence, a cry that would drag them into a battle far colder than the winter itself. Before we dive in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches your heart, smash that subscribe button so you never miss another tale of loyalty, bravery, and boundless heart. Your support means everything. The northern Montana air was razor sharp, so still, it made every breath sound like shattering glass. A pale sun hung heavy over a frozen sea of fields and bare pine trees. The world held its breath beneath a delicate blanket of snow. From the forest's edge, Logan Pierce ran in silence, his breath steady, his boots sinking deep with every step, leaving ghostly tracks behind him. Logan was 35, tall, broad-shouldered, a man shaped more by the harsh elements than by the years alone. His hair, cropped close and dark, flashed with the faintest silver at the temples. A short beard hugged his jawline, framing a face marked by quiet resilience, the kind of face that had stared down war and carried its burden without a single complaint. Once a Navy SEAL, he had given a decade of loyalty and service before walking away from it all. The noise, the grief, the blood, it haunted him still. That's why he sought the silence here, hoping the snow might teach him some peace. By his side ran Ekko, a German shepherd with deep amber eyes and a sleek black and tan coat that gleamed against the snow. Ekko was 4 years old, but a military K9 trained for search and rescue. Even retired, he moved like a well-oiled machine, alert, unwavering, ears flicking to the faintest sound. To Logan, Ekko wasn't just a dog. He was family, the one fierce companion who had followed him home from a world that no longer understood them. The morning was too quiet, dangerously calm. Then Ekko halted. His muscles coiled, nostrils flared. A low growl rumbled deep in his chest. Logan froze mid-step. He knew that growl, it wasn't curiosity, but warning. "What is it, boy?" Logan whispered, eyes scanning the tree line. Ekko pivoted sharply toward the western ridge, ears pricked, tail rigid. The wind shifted and carried a faint metallic scent, wrong somehow. Logan felt his instincts ignite. Without hesitation, he followed as Ekko dashed through the snow, weaving between gaunt, skeletal trees. They reached a clearing where the ground sloped into a shallow valley. There stood a run-down barn, half swallowed by frost. And silence, its roof collapsed, one side sagging under years of decay. The sight knotted something deep in Logan's gut. Places like that don't just crumble, they hold dark secrets. A fragile sound pierced the quiet, barely more than a whisper. "I can't breathe." Logan's heart hammered, human female, fragile and weak. He moved swiftly, wrenching open the barn door. The rusty hinges screamed in protest. Inside, the air was thick with dust and decay. His flashlight sliced through the darkness, revealing broken tools, rotted hay, and then movement. A figure lay beneath a heavy tarp. "Ekko, stay close." Logan dropped to his knees, grasped the tarp, and pulled it away. Beneath it lay a woman, bound tightly, her wrists bruised purple from the rough rope. A dark cloth gagged and blinded her. Her body shivered violently in the biting cold. Lips tinged blue, her breaths shallow and faltering. Her torn, dirt-streaked uniform revealed a silver badge half hidden beneath the coarse hay. "Jesus!" he breathed softly. With his knife, he sliced through the ropes and ripped away the gag. She gasped sharply, pulling in a ragged breath before her eyes rolled back. Instinct took over. Logan checked her pulse, weak, but alive. He peeled off his gloves, pressed 2 fingers to her neck. then started compressions against her chest. "Come on, hold on, stay with me. Don't quit now." Each push summoned memories from another battlefield. The same trembling hands, the same desperate rhythm. Yet he pushed those ghosts aside, focusing solely on the woman's face. Dark hair matted with hay, skin of olive tone, drained pale from shock-soft freckles dusting her nose. She looked young perhaps in her early 30s, but the bruises on her jaw told a story of cruelty that aged her within moments. Ekko whimpered, pacing close by, sensing the urgency. After what felt like an eternity, she coughed a harsh tearing sound, and her chest rose. A wave of relief washed over Logan's face. He pulled off his jacket and wrapped her tightly within, cradling her fragile frame as warmth slowly returned to her cheeks. "You're safe now. You're going to be okay," he whispered. She remained silent, mumbling only fragments, snatches of words about police evidence and they know. But her voice faltered, swallowed by the cold. He scanned the barn boot prints scattered across the dirt floor drag marks and a shattered phone. Whoever left her here meant for her to die slow and silent. Logan's jaw clenched tightly. There were rules out here. Some men broke every one of them, and then there was this. He lifted her gently, feeling the slight weight of her frail body in his arms. "Stay with me, officer," he murmured. "We're getting you out." As he stepped into the open air, snow began to fall again. Not a storm, but heavy enough to erase tracks within hours. Ekko ran ahead, clearing their path. The cabin lay 2 miles east through rugged terrain and dimming daylight. Logan exhaled in visible bursts. Each step sank deep into the snow. Behind him, the barn faded into the white silence, guarding its dark secret. The woman rested her head against his shoulder, her breathing shallow but steady. For a moment he looked down at her face, so delicate yet marked by unyielding strength. Whoever she was, she had not surrendered, and that alone gave him every reason to fight on. Somewhere behind them, in that hollow stillness, a door creaked closed, the kind of sound no wind could make. Logan didn't look back. He tightened his grip and marched onward toward the cabin, unaware that every step he took was being watched, quietly followed. The cabin groaned beneath the weight of winter. Snow piled against its wooden walls, muffling the world beyond. Inside, the only light flickered from a small fire crackling in the stone hearth. Logan Pierce laid the woman gently on the cot by the flames, his breath fogging in the cold air. He moved with practiced calm, removing her damp clothes, first replacing them with a dry thermal shirt and warm wool blanket. Then came the tendings of wounds, antiseptic spray gauze, and tight stitches closing torn skin. Then came the healing touch, antiseptic spray gauze wrapped tenderly, and stitches drawn tight over torn skin. He had been through this ordeal too many times before, in places far removed from home. His hands moved with practiced precision, even when his heart willed otherwise. She stirred, letting out a soft whimper that drew Ekko the German shepherd to lift his head from his post near the door. The dog's amber eyes tracked every subtle movement, his tail thumping softly once calm and steady. Logan met that gaze, his own calm and controlled, and Ekko relaxed back down, though his ears twitched at every faint crack echoing outside. Time slipped by, an hour before her eyes fluttered open. Pain widened her pupils, yet there was a spark of awareness shining within. Her voice emerged rough, fractured. Where am I?" "Safe," Logan replied simply. "You were left for dead in a barn 2 miles from here. Do you remember anything?" She blinked slowly, confusion flickering before fear took hold. "They'll come back. They always do." Her frame trembled beneath the threadbare blanket. Logan poured a cup of water, guiding it to her lips. "Slow," he urged gently. "Drink." She obeyed, her hand shaky, so he steadied it with quiet strength. He studied her face by the firelight's flicker. Early 30s, olive-toned skin drained of warmth. Dark brown hair tangled damp against her neck, and soft gray eyes that betrayed a tenderness too fragile for the brutal world they'd endured. A faint scar above her left brow whispered of battles past. "What's your name?" he asked softly. "Officer Rachel Moore," she whispered back, voice steadier now. "Local law enforcement. I was chasing a case." Logan's gaze sharpened. What kind of case binds someone in a barn like a prisoner? Her throat clenched tight. For a heartbeat, she seemed torn whether to trust or retreat. Then, breaking through with trembling resolve, she said, "The Syndicate, a trafficking and drug ring rooted in Blacktail County. I got too close. I recorded something I should never have seen. My partner's dead. I was supposed to be next." The familiar cold of combat ran a chill down his spine. The same ruthless script he'd witnessed in countless war zones, corruption power, and the sacrificial good. "You need a hospital," he said. Her response was instant wide eyes, a shake of the head. "No, you can't. There's a mole in the department. If they find I'm still alive." The dread in her voice wasn't born of panic, but hardened knowledge. Logan recognized that deep-rooted fear. It was the kind only betrayal could carve, heard from informants in the war-torn edges of the world. He exhaled slow and steady. "All right then, you stay right here until I do. We'll figure out what we're up against." Rachel met his gaze, lips trembling. "Why are you helping me?" Logan didn't answer immediately. He leaned back, the firelight casting shifting shadows across his rugged face, revealing the quiet strength and weariness born of countless battles. "Because once someone found me when I didn't deserve it," he said at last. Silence filled the space between them, heavy, yet profoundly human. Ekko rose and padded over, resting his head gently near Rachel's trembling hand. She hesitated a moment, then brushed her fingers softly through his thick coat. "He's magnificent," she breathed. "He's smarter than most people I know," Logan replied, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Outside, a cold wind stirred, carrying a soft howl that rattled the windows. Ekko's ears pricked alert. Logan turned toward the sound. A gut instinct clenched hard. Moving to the window, he peered into the shadowed night. Snow blanketed the earth, but the woods held a stillness that was wrong. Miles away in that same shattered barn, a black SUV came to a silent stop. 3 men stepped out, their boots crunching sharply on the frozen ground. They were no officers, though 2 sported counterfeit badges clipped to their belts. Their leader, a broad-shouldered man with a jagged scar tracing his jawline and slicked-back blonde hair, muttered a curse under his breath. "What the hell, she's vanished," he growled. One of the others crouched down, brushing dirt aside. Footprints, man and dog, tracking east. The leader, Kane Mercer, syndicate enforcer, tall and imposing with icy blue eyes that never blinked. Once a corrections officer fired for brutality years ago. Since then, he became the syndicate's go-to enforcer. Cold, methodical, he scanned the barn one last time, jaw clenched tight. "Find her. The boss demands proof. Anyone who helps her faces death, no exceptions." Back at the cabin, Logan stacked more wood onto the fire. Rachel slipped into a restless sleep, murmuring fragments, names, numbers, a desperate call for someone named Hale. Logan absorbed it quietly. The name stirred something buried, though he couldn't place it. Suddenly, Ekko growled, low and fierce. Logan locked onto the dog's gaze, peering out the window at faint headlights flickering through the forest. His heartbeat slowed, steadying to the rhythm of his training. "Stay here," he whispered, pulling a pistol from a locked drawer. Moments later, a cautious knock came at the door, too polite for strangers deep in the woods. Logan cracked it open just enough. 3 men stood there, breath steaming in the cold air. "Evening," the blonde one said, flashing a badge. "Detective Reynolds, local PD. We're looking for a missing officer. Rachel Moore. Seen or heard anything?" Logan's eyes narrowed as he sized them up. The badge caught the light, weirdly plastic sheen, no identifying numbers. Their stance legs, wide hands ready, felt off. "Not cops. Can't help you," Logan said flatly. The blonde man tilted his head, forcing a smile. "Mind if we come inside and look around?" "Yeah, I mind," Logan replied, before the man could answer. Ekko barked thunderous and sharp, echoing through the cabin. The closest imposter flinched, reaching for his gun. But Logan was quicker, one twist, one strike. The man hit the floor with a groan, arm twisted behind his back. The other two froze, caught between fight and flight. 3 seconds to leave before this turns ugly, Logan warned, calm but deadly. They retreated, dragging their fallen comrade, shooting him dirty looks as they fled. When the door clicked shut, Logan locked it tight and extinguished the main light. Only the crackling fire remained. Ekko growled again, ears perked toward the trees. Outside, shadowy figures slipped through the forest, faint but deliberate. Logan glanced at the sleeping woman and whispered, "Looks like we've got company." Somewhere in the darkness, the hunters began to close in. Morning broke gray and silent, the kind of cold that seeps into bone and soul. Rachel Moore sat by the hearth, legs wrapped in a wool blanket, hands trembling around a steaming mug. Her bruises darkened overnight, yet her pale gray eyes, flecked with green, held steady. The weariness that had hollowed her face was giving way to something fierce. Determination. Across the room, Logan Pierce methodically cleaned his rifle. Each movement deliberate, every metallic click, a punctuation in the silence. Sleep had eluded him not from fear, but because his instincts were ignited. Danger had a scent, and it was thick in the air. Rachel broke the silence first. "I need to tell you everything. You deserve to know just what you've walked into." Logan lifted his gaze. "I had figured as much." "Continue." She drew in a steady breath. "The syndicate isn't merely a drug operation. They control trafficking lanes, arms deals, everything the federal task force couldn't touch, because someone was leaking our every move." Her voice faltered for a moment. "I uncovered video proof of a man being executed, an innocent civilian. He wandered into one of their drop points." She set her mug down, eyes locked on the firelight. "I uploaded a backup of the footage onto the department's secure server, believing it was safe. By dawn, my captain summoned me, Captain Marcus Hale. He accused me of compromising an investigation. Within hours, my badge was pulled, and every officer I trusted cut me off completely." Logan's brow knitted tightly. "Hale, the name you muttered in your sleep just last night." Rachel nodded slowly. "He's more than corrupt. He's deeply connected. Hale's been colluding with the syndicate for years, leaking intel, covering their tracks. They aimed to erase me quietly." She swallowed hard. They almost succeeded. Logan rose, moving closer to the window. Outside, the snow shimmered softly beneath the pale morning light. "Then we make sure they never get that chance again," he said quietly. For a long moment, neither one spoke. Ekko lay near the doortail, flicking slowly, yet his ears twitched at every distant noise beyond the cabin's walls. Finally, Logan reached for his pack and pulled out a small black device, the satellite communicator he'd carried since deployment. "Old contact of mine," he explained, powering it up. "FBI doctor, Nathan Cade." Rachel raised an eyebrow. "You trust him with my life," Logan answered. "He patched me up overseas. Combat psychologist, intelligence liaison. He knows how to move unseen." Static crackled through the tiny speaker before a calm male voice replied, thick with sleep but steady. "Pierce. Jesus. It's been years. Not exactly a call for small talk, right?" Logan exhaled. "Got a situation. A local officer named Rachel Moore. She's got evidence against a criminal syndicate with law enforcement in their pocket, including her captain. She's alive, but barely. We need extraction and confirmation on Hale." A pause. Then Cade's tone sharpened. "Hale's on my radar. There have been whispers of missing case files and off-the-grid transfers. Send me your coordinates. I'll push this quietly through the bureau, but you're sitting in a hornet's nest, Logan. Wouldn't be your first rodeo," Logan muttered under his breath. Ending the call, he turned to Rachel. "They'll come, but it'll take time. We hold this ground until then." Rachel nodded, watching him methodically check the cabin's doors and windows, inventorying ammo with precise care. Every motion reminded her of someone hardened beyond return, the way soldiers never really come home, even when they do. "Teach me," she said suddenly. Logan glanced up. "Teach you how to fight back if they come. I don't want to be the one hiding behind you." He hesitated, then saw that same fierce spark he'd witnessed in the new recruits, a raw, scared, yet unyielding flame. "All right," he said. The hours that followed were spent in quiet preparation. Logan handed her a compact pistol from his case, guiding her to grip it low, elbows tucked in. He corrected her stance with patient but firm hands, the kind of silent teaching only a seasoned mentor can offer. Outside, the snow absorbed each shot as they practiced short, controlled bursts into a wooden stump behind the cabin. Between drills, Logan set traps along the tree line, weaving tripwires low to the ground. Old tin cans turned into alarms, their sharp clang guiding Rachel as she traced each one. This wasn't merely survival training, it was a silent pledge of trust being forged. Layer upon layer of quiet settled deep within the woods. By late afternoon, a cold wind stirred. Thick gray clouds coiled around the mountains like drifting smoke, while Ekko paced restlessly near the window, sensing the brewing storm. Rachel wiped the sweat from her brow and fixed her gaze on the darkening sky. "Do you think they'll be here tonight?" she asked. Logan's eyes scanned the horizon where the first snowflakes began to fall. "They're already here," he answered softly. Far away, Kane Mercer stood at the forest's edge, binoculars raised. The fading light caught the jagged scar running down his jaw. Behind him, 2 black trucks idled silently, engines rumbling low. Around them, half a dozen men in dark coats loaded rifles and checked their comms. The cabins are isolated. A wiry man with sunken eyes and a twitch at his jaw reported. "2 inside plus a dog," he added. Kane smiled coldly, but the smile never reached his eyes. "Then it's simple. Nobody walks out." The man hesitated. "The boss said she's worth more alive." Kane slowly lowered his binoculars. Alive is optional. Silent is mandatory. Back inside the cabin, Logan secured the final window latch and dimmed the lamps, preparing for the long night ahead. The fire's flickering glow carved shadows across his face as he looked to Rachel and Ekko. "Once this begins," he said, "there's no turning back." Rachel's grip hardened on the pistol. "Then we don't look back." Outside, the storm's first fierce gust howled through the trees, whipping snow like scattered ash. The faint crunch of footsteps broke the night's silence, a harbinger of a nightmare far colder than the air itself. Night had swallowed the mountains whole. The forest stretched vast, a blend of shadows and snow, broken only by the thin beam of headlights inching through the trees. Inside the cabin, Logan Pierce sat pressed against the wall, rifle resting on his knees, focused on steadying his breaths. Every sense sharpened. The biting cold, the oppressive silence, the electric tension hanging in the air ready to snap like a wire. Rachel Moore crouched at the window, pistol poised and steady. Her hair tied loosely back, shimmered softly by the flickering firelight. The bruises on her face had faded to pale yellow, but her eyes blazed not with fear, but with fierce defiance. She glanced toward Ekko, who moved restlessly by the door. The German shepherd's ears twitched, body coiled tight like a spring. "They've arrived," Logan whispered. The faint crackle of snow underfoot confirmed it. He reached for the small table where his satellite communicator blinked red. Pressing the button, he sent out a coded distress signal to Dr. Nathan Cade and the FBI field office. Miles away, the call cut through the static of the storm. "FBI's got it," Logan said quietly. "They'll answer, but not in time." Rachel gave a resolute nod. "Then we hold." The first gunshot smashed the window pane, wood splinters showering the floor. Ekko barked sharply, dropping low beside Logan. He fired back instantly, one precise burst that extinguished the enemy's muzzle flash in the darkness. The forest erupted with gunfire bullets ricocheting off tree trunks, snow exploding with every impact. Outside, Kane Mercer pressed himself against a tree, lips curling into a grim smile. His coat flapped with the wind, revealing the black rifle slung across his chest. His voice crackled through the radio clipped to his vest. "Push left, smoke them out." His men obeyed without hesitation, 6 in all, clad in shadowy tactical gear devoid of markings. They moved with the precision and silence of seasoned hunters, unshaken and resolute, until Logan's carefully laid traps snapped shut. A sharp metallic click shattered the stillness, followed by a sharp cry. One man faltered into the clearing, his ankle ensnared by a cunningly placed wire. Before he could collapse, Logan's bullet found its mark. Another triggered a tripwire, setting off an improvised flashbang that engulfed half the group in blinding light. Seizing the moment, Rachel fired through the fractured window. 2 shots rang out, both precise and true. The forest fell into a pregnant silence again, the air swirling with smoke and frost. Logan turned toward Rachel, his voice carrying a half-smile. Not bad at all. She reloaded, breath, shaky yet determined. "You trained me," she said. The next wave hit harder. A bullet shredded the doorframe, grazing Ekko's shoulder. The dog yelped sharply and faltered, but refused to back down. Instead, he charged toward the rear door, intercepting a shadowed figure trying to break inside. Fangs clashed with flesh. A strangled scream broke the night. Ekko held fast until the intruder went limp, but a second shot pierced the dog's side. "Ekko!" Rachel dropped beside him, pressing her palm urgently against the wound. "Stay with me, boy." Logan's jaw clenched hard. Cold and precise fury replaced all doubt. He fired 3 calm, deliberate rounds, securing the backline's perimeter. The acrid scent of gunpowder mingled with the smell of burning wood. A lantern had toppled, casting flames that began to lick across the floorboards. Rachel grabbed a heavy blanket, smothering the fire just in time. "They're regrouping," Logan observed, listening to the brief quiet. Moving to the radio, he keyed the mic once more. "Cade, you better be airborne by now." Far off in the command helicopter, Dr. Nathan Cade adjusted his headset with the assured calm of a seasoned field commander. His silver-flecked hair, cropped short eyes, sharp from many battles fought both on the ground and in the halls of power. His silvered hair, cropped close eyes, sharp and steady, seasoned by the relentless march of war and the cold grind of bureaucracy. "We're inbound." Cade's steady voice cut through the roar of the rotors. "Estimated time of arrival, 15 minutes. Hold that line, brother. 15 minutes feels like forever." Logan muttered, tossing the radio aside. Snow hurled through the shattered windows, whipped by the rising wind. The ancient trees groaned under the storm's weight. Then, cutting the darkness, a streak of headlights. Kane's remaining men were hauling a truck up the ridge, the mounted spotlight sweeping across the clearing. Their plan rammed through the front wall. "Get down," Logan bellowed. The truck lunged forward, its tires spinning ferociously in the snow. Logan waited, counted the pulse of the moment, then fired straight at the gas tank. The explosion tore through the night, a brilliant fireball painting the cold landscape in fiery orange. The blast sent a shockwave that flung snow and smoke into the air, bathing the forest in sudden, fierce daylight. When the haze lifted, 3 silhouettes still stood firm: Kane and 2 of his men. Rachel's chest heaved as she crouched beside the wall. Blood smeared across her sleeve where she'd pressed on Ekko's wound. Kane stepped forward, rifle raised, shouting over the howling wind. "You really think the FBI's coming to save you? They'll just bury this like they bury all the rest." Logan gave no reply. He steadied his rifle, fired a single shot that grazed Kane's shoulder, spinning him around. The 2 men beside him panicked, spraying bullets wildly. One dropped instantly from Rachel's swift return fire. The other vanished into the forest shadows. Kane, clutching his injured arm, stumbled backwards just as the distant thunder of rotor blades rolled through the valley. Searchlights pierced the night-white beam sweeping over the cabin, the snow and the scattered wreckage. "FBI, drop your weapons now!" The voice thundered from the loudspeaker. Kane froze his eyes, shining with primal fear, like a creature trapped in a snare. He hesitated for a heartbeat, then sprinted toward the tree line, but the FBI team was already descending. Dressed in black tactical gear, agents fanned out their laser sights, glowing red through the mist. Kane crashed face first into the snow, his hands restrained behind him. Inside, Logan finally lowered his rifle. The silence that followed was surreal, so profound it vibrated with tension. Rachel collapsed beside Ekko, gently running her fingers through the dog's fur as he breathed in slow, heavy rhythms. "He's still alive," she whispered, tears pooling in her eyes. Logan knelt beside her, his shoulder bleeding from a jagged splinter, but his voice remained steady. "So are we." Outside, the fire smoldered low. The storm's fury softened to a gentle murmur. Through the cabin window, the first fragile light of dawn stretched across the snow, pale, tender, full of hope. The storm had passed, leaving behind a sky washed in soft gold by the rising sun. Snow-covered mountains glowed faintly, standing as silent sentinels over the night's chaos. Smoke still curled lazily from the wreckage by the cabin. But the air was now clear heavy, not with danger, but with a sense of relief. Inside, Logan Pierce sat carefully tending to Ekko, wrapping a fresh bandage around the dog's wounded shoulder. The German shepherd whimpered softly, yet held his head high, amber eyes sharp and unwavering. Logan's rough hands moved tenderly, his expression softened by something rare gratitude. "You're one stubborn warrior," he murmured. Ekko thumped his tail once in response. Across the room, Rachel Moore stood by the window, her eyes locked on the distant helicopter circling above the forest. Her worn uniform had been replaced with a new FBI field jacket, its badge crisp and unfamiliar against her bruised skin. She looked stronger now, still exhausted, still haunted by fear, but carrying a quiet pride forged through survival. The door creaked open, letting in a rush of cold air. Dr. Nathan Cade stepped inside, snow dusting his boots and hair. He wasn't a man who showed weariness easily, but the deep lines around his eyes revealed nights without rest. His voice held the calm authority Logan had always relied on. "Perimeter secure. The syndicate's finished. Kane Mercer and his men have been taken into custody." Rachel turned to face him, and Hale Cade met her gaze steadily. "We uncovered his encrypted communications within the syndicate's database. That, combined with your footage and the data drive you recovered, leaves no room for escape. He won't weasel his way out this time." Rachel exhaled, her shoulders trembling with the weight of it all. "He was supposed to be our leader. He signed off on every mission I led." Logan rose his silhouette, casting a long shadow in the firelight. "Betrayal always cuts deepest when it comes from someone close. You did what you had to. You survived." Cade nodded in solemn agreement. "The FBI task force is moving on the city now. Hale is facing a very public reckoning this morning." The Helena Police Department stood like a fortress of glass and stone gleaming beneath the winter sun. Reporters pressed against barricades, cameras flashing wildly. Inside, the murmur of voices fell silent as the elevator doors parted, revealing Captain Marcus Hale. Tall, square-jawed, with graying hair slicked neatly to the side. His pristine uniform bore medals of honor badges that told stories of past glories now shadowed by the storm gathering around him. Logan rose his silhouette, stretching long in the firelight. "Betrayal always cuts deepest when it comes from someone trusted. You did what was necessary, you fought to live." Cade nodded quietly in agreement. "The FBI task force is mobilizing, heading into the city as we speak." Hale was about to face a morning like no other, exposed under glaring scrutiny. The Helena Police Department stood tall, a fortress of glass and stone shining in the winter sun. Reporters swarmed behind barricades, camera flashes igniting the chill. Inside, the room fell silent the moment the elevator doors parted, revealing Captain Marcus Hale tall, with a strong jaw set and graying hair swept neatly aside. His uniform was immaculate, decorated with ribbons that told stories of valor and service. He carried an air of control he hadn't felt in ages. He didn't notice the agents waiting by the front desk until Nathan Cade appeared, flanked by 2 officers clad in dark suits. Hale's confident stride wavered. Captain Hale Cade said steadily, holding out a folder. "You're under arrest for conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and collusion with organized crime." The room froze. Hale's expression hardened, but a flicker passed through his eyes, that fleeting moment when guilt eclipsed command. "This is ridiculous," he snapped. "You have no—" Kate interrupted him calmly. "We have it all. The data logs the money transfers, the footage your department tried to erase." Two agents stepped forward, reciting his rights as they snapped the cuffs around his wrists. Around them, uniformed officers stood in stunned silence. Some averted their eyes, others whispered quietly, and in the corner, Rachel Moore stood steadfast, her new badge gleaming at her belt. For a long moment, Hale's gaze locked on hers, his voice dropping to a hiss. "You think this changes anything?" Rachel's face remained steady. It already has. As he was led down the corridor, the last strand of his authority unraveled, leaving only the fading echo of his boots on the marble floor. A week later, the snow was beginning to melt. At the FBI field office in Helena, an award ceremony brought together the officers and agents who had endured the syndicate's storm. Cameras flashed, but this time the spotlight felt earned. Rachel stood beside Logan, both sharply dressed, her new police blues crisp and flawless, his dark civilian jacket accented with a small pin, a token Nathan himself had awarded. Ekko sat faithfully between them, his coat brushed smooth, the faint scar on his shoulder nearly invisible now. The FBI director, a woman in her 50s with silver hair and commanding grace, spoke from the podium. Officer Rachel Moore, for bravery amidst betrayal, for restoring honor to the badge you wear, and for your unwavering spirit. The Bureau and the state of Montana salute you. Applause swelled through the room. Rachel stepped forward to accept her commendation, composed yet holding back tears. As she turned, her eyes found Logan and Ekko. For a heartbeat, the noise dimmed, and all she saw was the cabin, the flickering firelight, the dog's steady gaze, and the man who braved the storm for her. After the ceremony, as the crowd thinned, Rachel knelt beside Ekko and gently pinned her new badge onto his harness just beneath the patch that read, U.S. Navy K-9. Her voice was quiet, but sure. "You didn't just save my life," she whispered. "You saved my honor." Ekko responded with a low, approving bark. Logan, standing close by, looked out through the wide windows. Beyond the horizon glowed a warm orange above the snowy peaks. The world outside remained cold, but no longer unforgiving. Nathan joined them, his coat slung over one arm. "You know," he said with a subtle smile, "some might call this retirement." Logan smirked. "You know me. Retirement's never been my style." Rachel smiled softly. "Then maybe it's not the end. Maybe it's finally peace." Outside, the sun rose fully over the mountains, scattering its light across melting snow. 3 figures stood united, a soldier, a cop, and a dog, bound not by rank or duty, but by a quiet, unbreakable bond. For the first time in what felt like forever, the world seemed right again. Miracles don't always crash in with thunder or blaze with light. They arrive softly, a stranger who never turns away, a soldier who heeds a silent plea in the shadows, or a dog who fights relentlessly to hold on to life. When everything feels frozen in place, remember that angels are still sent by God. Sometimes they come dressed in uniforms. Sometimes they move on 4 loyal paws. If this story stirred something deep inside you, pass it on to someone who needs their faith restored. Drop a comment below and share where you're watching from. May God bless you and your loved ones this evening. And don't forget to subscribe, because every story here reminds us that even in the darkest winter, faith always finds a way.